instead, I went out to my closest Barnes & Noble and picked up a copy of Encyclopedia Eorzea. So this is kind of like, it's like an encyclopedia. I mean, it's very kind of self-explanatory, but it's kind of like an encyclopedia and lore book of the world of Final Fantasy XIV. Eorzea obviously being the name of that world, of that planet, I guess. So yeah, it's I don't know, I thought it'd be cool to buy, just to have it. It's volume 1, I believe, of 3. I think there's 3 total volumes of Encyclopedia Eorzea. Volume 1, I think, doesn't go over any of the expansions. I think volumes 2 and 3 will go over Heaven's Ward through, I think, Endwalker. I don't think Dawn Trail is included in the Encyclopedia entries. So I think this will probably just cover the events of A Realm Reborn. I don't know. But I've only taken a look at the first couple pages. But I thought it'd be something fun to bring to the channel, and so I did. So, yeah, I'm kind of excited to take a look and see what is actually in these pages. Huh. Maybe this does go over Heaven's Ward, because I think this is Foundation. I think this is Kerthus with Foundation, and this is, I forget what the gate is called, but the gateway to Foundation. The inventory or index containing the contents of 8 books touching the past and present of Eorzea. So is it in 8 books here? I only know of 3 volumes. Oh, is it saying first, second? Okay, I get it. So there's 8 books within this encyclopedia. So it covers Heidelin, who's kind of like a goddess, I guess. I'm gonna be honest, for those of you who actually know the lore of Final Fantasy XIV, good for you. I don't actually, despite having 700 hours in the game, don't really know much about the lore of Final Fantasy XIV, especially in A Realm Reborn, because I am a cutscene skipper, which I know makes me kind of scum of the earth, but I wasn't really playing the game for the story, but I picked up bits and pieces throughout, and I will say, there were parts that I found engaging. I really liked Heaven's Ward. I really liked Shadowbringers. There were parts of Dawn Trail that I liked, and there were parts of Endwalker that I liked. I didn't really like Stormblood, and I didn't really like A Realm Reborn. But I do like the world. I do like the creatures and people and stuff, but the story never really intrigued me, or really kind of took a grip. So I might not explain stuff well, but as far as I understand, Heidelin is like a goddess of kinds, and Zodiark being her evil other half. If she's the goddess of light, he's kind of the god of dark, I guess. But so it's kind of about Heidelin, and then it's really all about Heidelin, right? Like, it's about her history, her children, her lands, her servants, her disciples, burdens, and creatures. Forgive my cat's tail. He's, as always when I record, he has to be here. just off screen giving him pets right now to try to dissuade him from walking over the book and over all my recording materials. And he is quite perturbed. He does not seem happy that he's being restricted. I'm trying to use pets as like a way to block him from getting in the way. But I think he knows that these pets are disingenuous. They're disingenuous. They're not pets for pet's sake. They're pets for keeping him away's sake. And this is these are the known worlds of Eorzea as we know them, before the existence of Tural, and I believe even things like Ultralayan. So Ultralayan, I think, would be over here somewhere, and Tural would be, off to the west. But when it comes to like a Realm Reborn, Heaven's Ward, and all that, before, Tural only existed in Dawntrail. Ultralayan, I think, was Endwalker, right? So, those are lands that exist much later. But what we can see here is like Gridania, which is the Black Shroud, which is where I started. I picked Lancer as my starting class, and the Lancers Guild is in Gridania, which is a land of like, it's very like forest fantasy tropey. There's like enchanted mushrooms, and well, there's like little mushroom people that are like evil little fungi that attack you, and and giant morbles, and it's just very fantasy landy. It for me, it felt like a very good starting point, a good starting city, because it leaned into it felt very fantasy-like. It felt like a city that you would start in a fantasy land. In comparison, you have like Ul'dah and Limsa Lominsa. Or wait, is Limsa Lominsa's over here? This is Ishgard. Okay. So yeah, that's Gridania. Ul'dah is like a desert city, and it feels like a city. Like Gridania feels kind of almost like doesn't look like a city. It looks more like, I don't know, like a village, or like I don't know, and it feels like it's a bit more of a sprawl. It feels bigger, even though it's not at all. Like Lenosha or Limsa Lominsa and Ul'dah both feel bigger. Both, I think, actually are bigger. Gridania might actually be one of the smaller cities, just in overall, like, I don't know. It's very green, very foresty, and very fantasy-y. Ul'dah is more like a desert city, and I don't know, the fantasy elements don't really seem as present in that area because it's more desertous, but I guess they are there. It's all fantasy based. There are creatures. If you leave the safety of the cities, there are creatures of different types and stuff. Like there are cactuar, however you want to say it, in the desert. Same as there's like mushroom people and giant gnats and stuff in the forest. There's giant, like, I don't even know what a biast is in real life, or what you would even, or no, there aren't biasts. There's like giant, like, snake-like things that have legs in the desert, and cactuars and stuff. And so each area kind of has its own ecology of fantasy creatures that are there, so they all have it. But I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to say that I'm biased, and Gridania felt like a really good place to start. And I think Gridania is actually probably one of the less popular starting places. I think like a lot of people either start or end up in Limsa Lominsa. The Limsa Lominsa Aetheryte Crystal is a very popular place for people to kind of congregate and go AFK, or do whatever it is that people do when they socialize in this game, because I sure as hell don't really socialize all that much. But like, I think Limsa Lominsa, it's more of like the seafaring, built over the water type of city, and it seems to be the most on any server or data center that I have been linked to or traveled to. The Limsa Lumensa aetheryte crystal tends to be the kind of one of the most populated areas. Gridania usually is actually is not usually very populated. Ul'dah usually has a pretty good population, and Ishgard actually was not one of the. It's you either started in Gridania, in Ul'dah, or in Limsa Lumensa. Ishgard was much later, kind of introduced to the story I think in A Realm Reborn. It's not even really a part of what is going on. Ishgard is kind of, I forget the word, but they're very seclusionist, where they don't like involve themselves in the happenings of the other three nations. So A Realm Reborn is kind of about the toil of the invading Garlean Empire, kind of reaching into these areas of Eorzea, and their kind of struggle to fight the Empire. And Ishgard is kind of by itself, and then in Heaven's Ward, Ishgard becomes much more involved. But yeah, I loved Gridania as a starting city. I think Dragoon and Gridania were two really great starting points for me. Move the book over a little bit. Basic aetherology. Not only is aether the most basic building block of all creation, but also the life energy upon which the various schools of magic draw. Without knowledge of aether and how it works, scholars would understand significantly less about the world and its inner workings. So aether, I guess, is kind of the conduit through which magics work. Within all beings, whether it be man, animal, or even plant, does aether flow. It is the spark which grants life to the lifeless. Conversely, death can be said to occur once aether is left a corporeal object. From this, it is clear to see why many scholars use the word life and ether interchangeably. It can be assumed that a young man of sound mind and body will possess a high concentration of ethereal energy in his humors, whereas an older man, or one inflicted with corruption, will not. Some scholars have expanded upon this hypothesis, saying that the consumption of food serves not only to fill the belly, but to provide the body with ether lost through exertion. Ether is not by any means static. It constantly flows through creation, forming currents through earth, water, and air, which ensure that life is sustained throughout the world. The stoppage of these currents would be akin to the atrophication of a limb cut off from the heart. Aether is the lifeblood of Hydaelyn, and without it, she and her children would perish. The source of all magics. Manipulation of ether in a manner that deviates from its natural tendencies is what scholars call magic. While the various schools of magic, such as thaumaturgy and conjury, all employ differing methods to achieve this goal, the basic concept is the same. A similar, yet more primitive type of ethereal manipulation can also be seen in non-sentient beings. A raptor breathing fire, or a biast generating a levin-like shock are all examples of lesser-born creatures utilizing the aether within their bodies, or available from the nearby environment to hunt or protect themselves from harm. So what is this? A summoner with their carbuncle and a black mage, I guess. The 6 elements: fire, wind, lightning, water, ice, and earth. I just started playing Black Mage recently, and, like, the elements actually seem relevant to that class, whereas most classes I don't, well, I mean, only a few classes actually use magics. Like the spellcasters, obviously. It's mostly magical DPS and healers use magics. Although I guess, like, every class technically uses magics. Or magic, however you want to say it. The 6 elements. Ethereal energies can be divided into 6 distinctive elements: fire, wind, lightning, water, ice, and earth. These elements provide nature with aspects that govern how they act in the world. For example, a region where ethereal currents are aspected towards fire will generally be hotter and drier than a region featuring primarily ice aspected currents, a region likely to be characterized by frigid climates or climes. The same can be said for the flora and fauna that populate an area. Seedkin aspected towards wind can navigate the skies as if they were winged cloudkin. Scalekin aspected towards earth will exhibit lithified skin protecting them from sharp-fanged predators. In addition to the 6 elements, there also exist 2 poles, astral and umbral, and those are something black mages have to deal with, is astral and umbral, where one depletes MP and the other replenishes it, which greatly influence the nature of the elements. An astral charge bringing more activity, while an umbral charge resulting in more passiveness. For example, when in an astral state, fire exhibits high volatility, whereas umbral state is characterized by dryness. So Hydaelyn is, I don't know, so throughout A Realm Reborn, Hydaelyn presents herself to you in the form of this giant crystal. But later, she takes a human form as Minfilia. But I think that Minfilia is just a personification of Hydaelyn. Hydaelyn isn't a person, isn't a human being. They're something else entirely. They're like a god. Some scholars in the field of aetherology further believe that somewhere deep beneath the land slumbers a mass concentration of ethereal life energy. These aetherologists refer to this phenomenon as the mother crystal. Still, some take this hypothesis one step further, stating that the existence of a mother crystal proves that the planet itself is alive and represents a heretofore unclassified biological entity. To support this theory, they point to the oracles and heroes of ancient history who claim unexplainable visions of the future or unnatural strength to overcome impossible odds. The scholars believe that it is through the recurring themes of Hydaelyn's will, it is through these visions that the planet is conveying messages to those she entreats to aid her, with the recurring themes of Hydaelyn's will or the will of light, which appear in the myths and folklore of seemingly unrelated civilizations as proof of this belief. So maybe Hydaelyn is Eorzea itself. So kind of maybe not a god, but instead just kind of like the ethereal, kind of like a conjunction of the entire ethereal will of the planet, I guess. Forgive me, I have to drink water to make sure I'm a little bit sick, so whispering is causing some discomfort in my throat, so I have to make sure I drink water so it doesn't hurt so bad. Primals is something I've always been kind of confused about. So primals are kind of like the typical summons in Final Fantasy games, although I don't think there's Odin, but they have like Ifrit, which I always said Ifrit, but apparently it's Ifrit. Ramu, I always said Rama. Ifrit, Ramu, Garuda, Leviathan, Bahamut. And basically there are like more primitive tribes in Eorzea Eorzea that summon the primals, or think that they're summoning the primals. I forget why they summon them. But I don't want to try to explain the A Realm Reborn story, but I just know that like the tribes would summon these primals or icons, whatever, however you want to describe them. They'd summon these godlike beings into existence to achieve some end, and then the icons or primals themselves would temper, some people who are maybe weaker ethereally than others might be able to be tempered, which means they would essentially be enslaved by the primals. Those of high ethereal not contribution, not conviction, constitution. Those of high ethereal constitution would be able to not be tempered. They'd be able to resist the tempering. But, I guess we can read. Arcanists have devised methods of tapping into their own ethereal energy to create semi-sentient yet fully loyal familiars. This, however, is not the sole method available for drawing forth an animate being from that ether, or from the ether. A second method involving the combining of corporeal ethereal energy, usually amassed in crystallized form, with spiritual ethereal energy, usually represented in the form of faith, prayer, or willpower, in an elaborate summoning ceremony, has in recent years grown increasingly common amongst the beast tribes of Eorzea. Using this method, powerful godlike beings known as primals can be brought to manifest, allowing them the opportunity to enforce their will on the land. The name primal is derived from the beast tribe's belief that these creatures are deities from which their peoples originate. In addition to primal, these beings have historically also been known as icons by both the Allagan and Garlean empires, who were adamant in their dismissal of the creature's deific status. Once a primal has gained a corporeal form, the creature will oft, as a boon, offer protection to or empower those who summoned it. With corporeal manifestation complete, a primal can also project its own internal aether upon the weak-minded beings, corrupting their hearts and minds, tempering, effectively creating obedient followers. This tempering can prove a primal's greatest weapon, meaning even a victory against one of the creatures will not be had without great sacrifice. And even these victories are short-lived, as once enough crystals are gathered and another ceremony performed, the demigod can be resummoned as if it were never defeated. Finally, in addition to the chaos wrought by the beings themselves, the very act of summoning can have adverse effects on the land. The aether required in the summoning and maintaining of a creature's corporeal form will, without fail, draw over much from the surrounding environment's life energy, turning once lush areas into wastelands and disrupting the very balance of the world itself. Zodiarch. So this kind of gets into the Ascians, who we don't really understand the Ascians. We don't really understand what they want in A Realm Reborn. We just know that they're trying to summon their god, who is Zodiarch. But I don't really think that we understand why. Not until it's either Shadowbringers or Endwalker. We find out, like, Selk is the Ascian, I think, who's kind of behind it all. And he's trying to summon Zodiark to fix a mistake that he made. Where I think the entirety of the Ascian's culture was killed. And I think he wants to summon Zodiark because he thinks he can fix that, if I remember correctly. He thinks he can bring back his society, his culture, his people by summoning Zodiark. I can't remember though. And basically the Warriors of Light, who are, your character in Final Fantasy is a Warrior of Light, but there are many. It's not just you, it's obviously all the people that you see in the world, and there are even people who existed before, who are essentially Heidelin's chosen, who she grants, special power and ability to, in order to defend her. And when she bestows that power upon you, it's called a Blessing of Light. And here we can see actually, I think this character is Ardbert. I can't remember his name exactly, but he was a previous Warrior of Light before your Warrior of Light came to Eorzea. The 12, so this is something I've never... Or wait, no, am I thinking of... So there's the 12, which these are like, kind of the... I think these are like... I forget who these people are. But the 12, I think these actually are kind of more like horoscope type stuff. This is more of like your like Taurus and Aries and whatever. But there's a whole other... There's like, what is the 14? There's like, in the first is where Shadowbringers takes place. And I think it's like the dimensions. And I always kind of in my headcanon thought that each one of those represented a different Final Fantasy game. But that can't be true because I don't think, like, in 14 would have been, where 14 takes place. And, 1 through whatever. But if the first is where Shadowbringers takes place, the first I don't think has any relation to Final Fantasy 1. Or just Final Fantasy. The history of Eorzea. Oh, I get it. Umbral and Astral. So there are Umbral eras and Astral eras. And then there's like, the Calamity of Lightning. Interesting. So like, the elements actually have a lot to do with the history of Eorzea. The first Umbral era, Calamity of Wind. First Astral era, a time of stone and fire. Interesting. I really do want to like read this, and I think I could get a good idea of like the actual story. Amon and Scylla, Phlegathon, and Labelos. So like these are enemies that you fight in the Circus Tower, in the Crystal Tower, which is the first Alliance raid. Amon is actually Amon is in Circus Tower. Phlegathon, or Phlegathon, however you want to say his name, Phlegathon. What is that? Is that Labyrinth of the Ancients? Scylla is also in Circus Tower. Labelos, I think, is Circus Tower. I think these three are Circus Tower. But none of them are the final boss of Circus Tower. Who is the final boss of Circus Tower? Final boss of the Circus Tower is Phlegathon. It is Phlegathon. Who am I thinking of that's in Labyrinth of the Ancients? The guy that does Ancient Flare. Because I think Phlegathon is the guy who, like, disappears, and then those, like, orbs appear that you have to destroy the orbs, then he comes back and then does the stack marker that elevates you, and then he does the thing that hits the floor, and you have to be on the stack marker levitated. I think that's Phlegathon. Ooh, I can't remember. this is the Cloud of Darkness. Cloud of Darkness is the end boss of the World of Darkness Alliance raid. Is that a young Grahatia? I don't think so. Unai and Doga. So they're like clones that appear in either, I think, in Circus Tower of these people. Like, yeah, I feel like I should actually sit down and read this someday, because I could actually get a good idea of the story behind what I'm actually doing. Amdapor is a really cool dungeon. I never, I think actually reading this, I really should read this, because I can actually learn about like what Amdapor actually is, because it is an interesting, and it seems kind of like an out of place dungeon. Like, it doesn't seem like you're in Eorzea anymore, so it'd be interesting to read about, to see kind of like the story behind that, and what's going on. And there's some Tonberries. That's cool. Oh, and yeah, this guy, the White Lion. I think he's a semi-boss. I don't know how you would say it, but he's like a boss before the final boss in the Lost City of Amdapor. A Battle of Amdapor. Yeah, you fight Diabolos, and then Diabolos, I think you fight in either Amdapor Hard, or there's like a couple Amdapor dungeons, but I think this one, Caribou, is who you fight in the Lost City of Amdapor, just the regular version. And then there's the Ark of Maki, which I think is like there's the other Alliance raids, right? Like, the Void Ark and whatever. That's really cool. A bunch of chocobos that have been barded, a bunch of barded chocobos, and like their riders, holding their sigils and banners. That's really cool. I got Hades barding for my company chocobo in the last Mogpendium event, and I'm very happy about that, because I wanted a cool barding for my chocobo. It will always be like, I will concede Ifrit, I will concede Ramu. I will never concede the pronunciation of chocobo as chocobo instead of chocobo. If you say chocobo, you can go fuck yourself. It's chocobo, and it will always be chocobo. Infiltration of Castrum Novum. Living on a prayer. There's Gaius with his little jingle-jangle Christmas ornaments on his helmet. And if you never saw him before, you'll never not see him now. Gaius, who I fight every day during my MSQ daily roulette. Gets really tiring. I really wish they would expand upon what you can do as far as MSQ daily roulette. Like, if they can incorporate other duties, it would be really nice to just kind of shake things up, because just doing the 3 ARR MSQ duties every day is getting really, really old. The Battle of Cartano, which, if I believe, or if I am correct, the Battle of Cartano is the actual battle that reset Final Fantasy XIV from its original form to A Realm Reborn. Basically, for those who don't know, or might not be familiar, Final Fantasy XIV, when it first came out, was horrible. No, I don't know. I never played it. Some people might have liked it, but there was like a cap on XP that you could earn every day, and a lot of other things that just I don't think players liked. So in-game, they created this calamity. I guess basically in lore, there was like a prison that Bahamut was being kept in, and that prison, I guess, opened, and then in order to defeat Bahamut, a bunch of main characters, Louis Soir being like this academic main character, and a bunch of other members of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. I think like Thancred is involved, and maybe Minfilia, and Papalimo, and maybe, what's her name? The monk, who's somebody else, but you think it's her sister. Or she pretends to be your sister, but she's somebody else, and you find that on Stormblood. But basically, like, there's a calamity, and Bahamut gets released from his prison, which is the moon or something. And then, yeah, basically the Battle of Carteneau ensues, and there's, like, an explosion, and it essentially, like, resets the world. It basically, that was the end of Final Fantasy XIV, and the start of Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn. So the original version of the game died and came back as something else. If I'm remembering correctly. So I guess this is kind of a timeline. Yes, A Realm Reborn. So yeah, I think I'm right. I think the Battle of Carteneau is where essentially the world blew up, but then it was reborn into the Final Fantasy XIV that we know today. And here we can see, what's her name, Livia, and Nero, Gaius. I don't know who that is. I think he's probably one of the bosses that we fought right before we fought these guys. Because I know right before, so like right before you hit level 50 and you do the fight with Livia, Nero, and then Gaius, it's like Castrum Meridium, Praetorium, and, you basically, the MSQ dailies are fighting these three people. Right before you do that, you fight this big dude, and I think that might be him. But he's not a part of the actual duties themselves, where you fight those three. He was just right before. The Lord of Inferno. Which I'm assuming is Ifrit. You can see Ifrit, and I don't know if I'm even pronouncing this correctly. This an Amalja. The Paragons of Darkness. Lord of the Crags. So here's Titan. And Friend Lost and Found. That's Sid. Sid is a Garlean who, I think he has like amnesia or something, and you find him in Ul'dah, in like not a monastery, well maybe a monastery, but you find him in like a church, and I think he has amnesia, or maybe he's just pretending to be somebody he's not, because he doesn't want people to know he's Garlean. Or he might have amnesia. It's been a long time since I've played A Realm Reborn. The Lady of the Vortex, Gyruda. Operation Arkham. That's really sick art. So there's Gaius, and that's Livia, and Nero, and then that other guy. Reclaiming the Dawn's Light. So this is Minfilia, who is the leader of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, which is kind of like the band of people who've all, I guess, been chosen or blessed by Hydaelyn to protect Eorzea from the Garlean threat. And she's kind of like the de facto leader, and if you've been keeping up with Final Fantasy XIV, you saw that they're going to be releasing a mobile version, and it ends with Minfilia's voice actress, or the voice of Minfilia saying, "You've been called to the Waking Sands," which is something that I don't know. It's very nostalgic for somebody who played Final Fantasy XIV to hear that, because it is a line that's used a lot. Well, at least maybe not a line that's used a lot, but you certainly get called to the Waking Sands often enough that in game they give you envelopes, or they give you these like essentially like little passes that can teleport you right to where you need to be in the Waking Sand, or by the Waking Sands, in Vesper Bay. So here, such devastation. This was not my intention. It's a famous line from Gaius as he is melded with Ultima, or when he's piloting Ultima, this giant machine. So in the MSQ in the main scenario quest daily roulettes, one of the things that you have to do over and over, it's Castra Meridium, which is assaulting like an Imperial or a Garlean Empire like stronghold, and then Praetorium, which is confronting Gaius, and then fighting Ultima, which is kind of like the end boss. And in the Ultima fight, there's a part where the Asians basically describe that the core of the weapon of Ultima is the Heart of Sabik, which is essentially something that will cast a spell called Ultima, which will recreate their god, again, which is Zodiark. So it's the Asians, the Garleans are using the Asians to create this ultimate machine to, like, I guess, take over Eorzea. Unbeknownst to them, the Asians are using the Garleans to try to resummon Zodiark. I think that's the situation. Again, any lore nerd that knows more than me, which you inevitably do, might be able to clarify or correct me, because again, I skipped a lot of cutscenes, so I don't know things. Period. The Lord of the Whirl, aka Leviathan. A primal unlike any other. King Mog. So I came to I loved Moogles. I thought Moogles were awesome. When I played Final Fantasy IX, I loved Moogles. I thought they were really cute and cool. And then I played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I hated Moogles. I hated what they did to Moogles. I hated the voices that they had for Moogles. I hated everything about Moogles. And then playing through 14, I now like Moogles again. The Lady of Frost. So maybe this does cover, yeah, this definitely does cover Heaven's Words, because like Sir Aymeric, Lady Iceheart, and the Dragon Song War, that's all, the Temple Knights and all that, Crystal Braves, that's all part of Heaven's Word. The Lord of Levin, Ramu, Lady Iceheart, and Shiva. The Bloody Banquet, is that where Life for Death? So I think that's where what's-her-name dies. I think so. At one part in the Realm Reborn, they realize, or they come to a realization or discovery that they can trap Asians, like, aspect, or their, like, souls in these, like, down here, they can trap Asian, like, their state of being. They can trap them in these, like, devices. And at one point they try to trap an Asian in it, and in the process, what's her name? I can't remember, but she died. Moonbrinda, I think that, yeah, Moonbrinda, I think she dies. She was like a good friend of Minfilia. I think the Bloody Banquet, is that where, what's his name? Teleji Adeleji kills, what's her name? Or you think he kills Nanamo. Nanamo is the, she's kind of like the queen, I guess, but not really. She's like the regent of Ul'dah. Oh, Heaven's Ward, okay. Yeah, so Ishgard was kind of the, I'm trying to think of the word. It's like what Japan did, where they like cut off all trade in the, like, what was it, the 1600s? I don't want to say isolationist, doesn't sound correct, but they essentially like cut themselves off from the rest of the world, and Ishgard is that way until you get to Heaven's Ward, and then you actually go to Foundation, and you see all the places in Ishgard that people are only talked about. The Lord of the Hive, what is it? Thaukas Talk. Heart of Ice. Oh my god, Race Velgar. I loved Heaven's Ward. And is this Estinian with the eye of Nidhogg? And it becomes the Blood Dragoon. Like, I don't know. It also, like, starting in Gridania as a Dragoon, transitioning to Heaven's Ward, and, like, doing all of the Dragoon quests, transitions very seamlessly into Heaven's Ward. So when I started as Dragoon and, like, played throughout A Realm Reborn and then into Heaven's Ward with those characters, it felt very appropriate. Like, I don't know, it had a very good flow to it. And the Dragon Song War was built on a lie. What was it? It was King Thordan and his knights ended up lying, and that's why dragons and humans have been at war for so long. Asisla, or whatever. This is where you have to go to build your relic weapons in Heaven's Ward. I really think, oh, and this is, what's this, the, Limitless Blue. What's his name? Let me see if I can see it in here. Oh, man. What's this guy's name? Bismarck. This big flying whale. There's a whole, I don't know if it's a raid or if it's just a trial. But there's a whole boss battle with Bismarck. King Thordan and his Knights 12. Very cool. The Word of the Mother. So yeah, I think that's kind of... I think this is a representation of Minfilia as the voice of Hydaelyn, kind of like her voice on Earth. Oh my god. Estinian. I'm pretty sure that has to be Estinian. I love Estinian so much. He is Pookie. It was really sad. He played kind of a small part in Dawntrail. I wish we saw more of him. But I love Estinian. I think Estinian's awesome. I also was a huge fan of Sir Aymeric. I thought Sir Aymeric was really cool. He's the bastard son of like the High Priest in Ishgard. I forget what they called the High Priest. But yeah, Sir Aymeric, he had a really sexy voice, I'm gonna be honest. Of horns and primals. Wither the keys. Her children. Oh, okay, so these are gonna be the races. The here. Just people. How boring. Alezen. Lalafell. When I first started playing, I was a Lalafell. Now I'm a Makote. Because if you can be a cat girl, you might as well be a cat girl. Rogadin. The Aura. Oh wow, okay. There were a couple other races, or I guess there's just, what is it, the Hrothgar. oyster looks delicious. It's like a slice of lemon in it. So Limsa is the very, as you can see, kind of like with all the ships. Sorry, this part of the book got cut off. I would put more effort in as far as like framing of the shot to make it easier to see the book, but unfortunately, my my ring light that has a stand for the camera, the stand part kind of broke, so I need to buy a new one. So for now, you have to deal with uncomfortable angles for shots like this. The Maelstrom, so I think that's like the Grand Company in Limsa in Lenosha. Oh wow, they have like the map and everything. So, lower decks, this would be, I guess that's where the aetheryte crystal is. And then this is like Hawker's Alley. This is where like all the stores and stuff are, and the market boards. And that, like when you spawn into Limsa, that really highly populated area is right here. Well, it's either here or it's here. I don't know for sure. I think it's here. I'm pretty sure it's on the lower decks. I'm fairly certain it's the lower decks. And I'm pretty sure E, the Octant. Okay, D is Hawker's Alley, so it's G. Bulwark Hall. I think it's E. I think it's the Octant. I think it's here. I've been wrong before, though. So in Limsa, you have the Marauders Guild, which Marauders become warriors. Arcanist Guild, where Arcanists become either summoners or scholars. Well, they become summoners and scholars. And when you earn Arcanist XP, you earn XP for both your summoner and your scholar, which is pretty cool. The Rogues Guild, which I think rogues become ninjas. Blacksmiths and armors, and the fishermen. You know, the disciples of the land always kind of stay the same. They don't change jobs. And these are all kind of the starting areas. Yeah, eastern, western Lenosha, outer Lenosha. It's where all the, what are they, goblins? Or not goblins, the, oh my gosh. Oh, I can't remember what they're called, but it's like a classic Dungeons and Dragons race. Let's see if we can, Skybold, or Kobold. That's where all the kobolds are. Upper Lenosha, which is a pain in the ass because there's like an aetheryte crystal on one side, a huge body of water, and then the other side, it's almost faster to go to another area, spawn at that aetheryte crystal, and then travel down to get to the one part of Upper Lenosha. Yes, Gridania. This is where I started. Oh, I love Gridania. Gridania. Whatever, I don't care. However you want to say it. Connie Senna is like kind of, so Limsa is led by what's her name? Admiral Merlwib Blosfin. That's her right there. So that's her leader. The leader of Ul'dah is Nanamo the Lalafell. And the leader of Gridania is Connie Senna. And the order, so like Limsa had the Maelstrom. In Gridania, it's the Order of the Twin Adder. Wow, they really accentuated the boobage on that. That'd get a recruit to sign up for sure. If you thought chicks like that would be in the Order of the Twin Adder. Raya Osena, so when you're a conjurer, when you're trying to make a white mage, trying to train. As a white mage, you'll take a lot of quests from Raya Osena and Arun Senna. The Wood Whalers is kind of like the City Watch. New Gridania. Yeah, so right here is the Aetheryte. That I must have been right about Lominsa, because yeah, like right here is the Aetheryte crystal in New Gridania. And then down here is where you meet, I forget her name, Mother Mione, when she gives you your first quest. Actually, the first place you enter in is through here. So the first place I think that you actually play the game is like starting right here around A, just inside these gates. And I remember walking up here, and there's this huge cliff down to water down here, and you just walk up, and then you see the Aetheryte crystal, and you know, you see this. I don't know. It's awesome. The memories. And then, so Gridania is made up of New Gridania and Old Gridania. In New Gridania, I think New Gridania houses the Archers Guild, and I think there's like the Carpenters Guild somewhere over here. I think it's D is the Carpenters Guild. H, I believe, is where the Grand Company barracks are. The Adder's Nest, yeah. What is I? I is White Wolf. It's just a gate. I really never spend time down there. F is the Quiver's Hold. That's where the Archers Guild is. Old Gridania is where you'll find the Lancers Guild. So I believe M is the Lancers Guild. The Whaling Barracks, yep. D, I think D is where you find like the Lancers Guild. Aetheryte Shard. Hey, buddy. Hey. It's 4:58, which means dinner's in 2 minutes, and he's seeing that I'm not moving. Hey, buddy. He's been, he hasn't been eating his food right away the past couple days, so I've been very worried about him. And the poor guy, had a bad poop this morning. So I think he's sick, and I think it's hopefully working its way through, because he is starting to eat more, but he wasn't eating a lot, and that was making me very nervous, because I know that really, you know, a sign that your animal is sick is when they're not eating. But I'm going to take care of this because he's clearly very in need of food, which is a good sign, and I want to encourage him to, you know, have an appetite. So I'll be right back. Alright, well, I just stopped recording and fed Krieger. He ate a little bit. He didn't eat all of his food. He never really has done that, but he ate some of his food. But yeah, so it looks like he's feeling better. But I realized we'd been recording for like an hour, so I want to try to hurry this up, but you know, it takes as long as it takes. I couldn't believe it had been an hour. I couldn't believe it had been an hour. So the Botanist Guild, I have a level 80 Botanist. Lancers Guild, that's where I started. I actually just started an Archer. Conjurer's Guild, that was the first healer that I leveled. So I have a lot of ties to Gridania. I love Gridania. It was a very cool place to start, and I'm very happy I started there. And then this is Ulda, which is the Flames is their grand company. Yeah, the Manderville, the gold saucer is in Thanolin, which is where Ul'dah is. So I know that is where the Aetheryte crystal is. Man. Gladiators Guild Gladiator becomes Paladin. Pugilist becomes Monk. Thaumaturge, which I just started, becomes Black Mage. I actually, I have a friend who played Final Fantasy XIV, and he started as a Black Mage, and he hated it. And he hated that class so much, he stopped playing, and I gotta be honest, like, it's not that bad, it's actually pretty fun. I started a Monk, and I just hate Monk. It doesn't make sense to me, but then I played Black Mage, and I think Black Mage is, I'm only in the early level, I'm at like level 30 on my Black Mage. But I don't know, it's not bad. Krieger. He shakes his head and he gets saliva everywhere. This book was $40. Could you not do that? The different regions of Thanolin. Is Mordona considered Thanolin? Ishgard. The Holy See. Is that what the Holy See? Is the Holy See like their high priest or whatever? Archbishop Thordan VII. The Holy See often describes its relationship with the people as one with maternal and paternal facets. So what is the Holy See? In its maternal role, the Archbishop in his clear nurture. Okay, so I guess the Holy See is like the name of the church, the entire church. Oh, cool. Okay, so this is all about Sir Aymeric. Aymeric de Borel. And again, I really liked Sir Aymeric. Again, he's like the bastard son of Archbishop. Sir Aymeric de Borel is the Lord Commander of the Temple Knights and, as rumors suggest, the bastard son of Archbishop Thordan VII. Owing to his father's influence, he was adopted at birth by an aged Viscount of House Borel, whose wife was barren. Though they treated him as their own flesh and blood, rumors of his status as a bastard and his father's true identity eventually found their way to him. And so, after being inducted into the Temple Knights, Sir Aymeric hoped he might one day be granted an audience with the Archbishop to learn the whole truth. The 32-year-old Sir Aymeric... Come on, Krieger, really? The 32-year-old Sir Aymeric's political views, as well as his distaste for petty power struggles, are largely the result of his upbringing, particularly his keen awareness of the limitations placed upon an individual for the circumstances of their birth. Though a man of modest tastes, he allows himself a single indulgence, a few drops of birch syrup mixed in with his morning tea. And I didn't know this, but his sword has a name, and it's Nangling. Sir Aymeric's sword, Nangling, is a Borel family heirloom, once used to slay dragons. Sir Aymeric's foster father prayed it would grant him the strength in his struggles to come, both on and off the battlefield. And the dragoons. I don't know. There's something so cool about like dragoons and Estinium wormblood. Like dragoons, like dragon killers, dragon hunters. I don't know, there's something very cool about having something like very like having a specific Look at this. Look at this tail. Krieger, what is this? If I hold it long enough, he'll get annoyed. He usually starts swinging. start swinging claws and paws, but I guess these are the other notable houses. I've always kind of wondered, I mean, it feels very, I don't know, it feels very, so there's the aetheryte crystal for foundation, and, down here is the broom, which is kind of like their undercity, where all the criminals and non-desirables hang out. Up here, I think I would be the Forgotten Knight. No, it's the Congregation of Knights Most. So that's where that's where like Sir Amaric's quarters and stuff are. These are like the pillars. That's the jeweled crozier. That's where all the markets are. And here's kind of like the main thoroughfare. There are a lot of important family houses on the flanking this middle area. And I think L is like where the main like church is, right? Yeah, St. Raymond's Cathedral. Wait, not Raymond. Raymond. Oh, there has to be. Chilean. Where the hell? I spend so much time there. There has to be something on, Drain Hinterlands. On Idleshire. I love Idleshire so much. Okay, this Western Islands. The Dravanian Forelands. What about the Dravanian Hinterlands? Sea of Clouds. Wow, did they just skip over Idleshire? Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Wait. The Dravanian Hinterlands are part of Charlayan, not Ishgard. Well, it's interesting. I'm definitely gonna have to read about this because I always thought that was part of. Oh, Mother Matoya. Matoya's relict is a duty I had to run over and over and over again to get specific gear for my Reaper. The Collector's Quarter, the Maker's Quarter, the Ruling Quarter. Idleshire, yes. Idleshire gets a whole page. Awesome. Idleshire. I spend a lot of time in Idleshire because it's a place you have to go to for the Heavensward relic weapons. It's a place you have to go to for Chloe's books, the Wondrous Tales, or Wondrous Trials, Wondrous Tales. I also like Idleshire is it's an old Charlayan city that was like all of the Dravanian hinterlands, I guess part of Charlayan is like abandoned, and then goblins moved in, and goblins have their naming conventions. I love their naming conventions. So like the Free Walks round spot is kind of like the market area, and like how goblins name themselves and stuff. So I don't know. It's Idleshire holds a special place in my heart. Yeah, I would make Idleshire my my home aetheryte crystal if there was a market board and an inn there, but there isn't. So Gridania will do. Slow fix coin toss. And like quick thinks all thoughts. I always thought I'd fashion myself as slow thinks, no thoughts. Alamigo. Okay, so this covers Stormblood too. And the Garlean Empire. I think that's the Emperor right there. Oh yeah. You can see him here too, the Garlean Emperor. And there's Nero Tolskeva. With his hammer, who you fight every day in the well, not every day, but a lot of days. And there's Ultima, another thing that you fight in the MSQ. Regula van Hydrus, Gaius van Belsar, or as I call him, Gay-ass van Balsac. I have the humor of a child, forgive me. But also when you have to listen to him deliver a speech every single day, when you're doing your dailies, it can be kind of infuriating. The Scions of the Seventh Dawn. Tataru. I love Tataru. Louis Soir. So, he was in the Calamity or whatever, that the Seventh Umbral or whatever, I don't know, the Battle of Carteneau is basically, I think he basically sacrifices himself to cause the realm reborn, basically. Ida, that's her name. Ida the monk. Who's not really Ida, she's Lise. Thancred. People can be thirsty for Thancred. I'm thirsty for Thancred. Eorzea, who talks, he has a very specific way of speaking that's kind of funny. I like Thancred a lot. My favorites are probably Thancred and Y'shtola. I do not like the twins, Alphino and Alice, but and I do like Kryl a lot. Biggs and Wedge. Doma, so that gets into like Othard. And that's, part of Storm's Blood. So imagine if this is A Realm Reborn, Heaven's Ward, and Storm's Blood. Volume 2 would be Shadowbringers, Endwalker. So then what would the third one be? Just Dawntrail. I don't know that I don't know. The Sons of Saint Koinok. Grahatia. I love Grahatia. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't notice. He has a crimson eye. The Allegan Eye. This crimson hue to one's eye is a trait manifesting only in those possessed of royal blood. It is called the Royal Eye in the Third Astral Era, but has become known as the Allegan Eye, as most who knew its true name perished in the calamitous events triggered by Zonde's actions. I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. I love Graha. He's awesome. The Red Bills with Kate Sith. Yeah, I think their whole thing is aren't they the ones that do the Void Arc? I think you have to talk to these people to do the Void Arc, the Heaven's Ward. Alliance Raid. Heaven's Ward Alliance Raid. The dragons are interesting. So I think they're all a brood of Midgard Sormer. He's like the main dragon who fathered all dragons. Nidhogg and Hraesvelgr, I think, are two of his greatest spawn. And Nidhogg is evil and Hraesvelgr is not not evil, not necessarily good. Vidofnir, who's in, what is it, the Duranian Forelands. You can meet him in that, or her. Tiamat. Oh, it's so cool. Mudamix, he's like your materia guy. He's your materia goblin. Oh man, how do you say her name again? Eorzea. She's Lady Iceheart. Wait a minute, do they have, Roundrock's Maze not. Lanuvania. Wow. The Asians. La Habrea, Elidibus. Nibrialis. Her disciplines. Soul Crystal, so this is all about, it's all about the jobs and classes. Monk. I do not like Monk. I love Warrior. And I'm really liking Paladin too. I love Dragoon. This is what we started as. The Azure Dragoon. That title. I have that title. I just started Bard. Bard is interesting. I've never played Ninja. I do have a White Mage. I think that is one of the starting versions of the A Realm Reborn relic weapon. Black Mage. I just started Black Mage. I love Summoners. Summoners are great, like, lazy person DPS, because the rotation is super easy. I'm not a big fan of Scholar. Scholar and Summoner both stem from Arcanist. Scholar, to me, just feels like a pretty weak healer. Dark Knight, I started out not liking Dark Knight at all. But with recent changes they made to Dark Knight, I really like Dark Knight now. I think it still uses, you could still use like a little bit of a tweak. I think its MP generation is pretty slow, but that being said, it's like, it's pretty powerful, so like, I don't know, just in my head, I'd like it, I don't like seeing an empty MP bar, so that could just be my own OCD. But like, as it is, I think Dark Knight is probably in a pretty good place. I think it has a pretty high DPS for a tank. And we have Machinist, which I started out and I didn't like, and then once I got to 100, I did kind of like, and I don't know, it just kind of seems blah. Astrologian, which I struggled with pronunciation because I always argued that it just be astrologian, but I looked it up with my friends, and yeah, actually, like, Astrologian, with the emphasis on low, Astrologian is the actual correct pronunciation when you're referring to that vocation in that context. Astrologian is correct as opposed to astrologian. I really like Astrologian. Her burdens. The Amalja. The Amalja. The Ixal. So the Amalja is Ifrit. The Ixal, their primal is Garuda. The Kobolds, Titan. The Sahagins is Leviathan, that makes sense. And the Sylph's icon is Ramu. And the Moogles is Good King Mog. The music on that is really good. Oh, the Goblins is Alexander. That makes a lot of sense because he's kind of like, I don't know, he seems very like mechanical. He seems like he's built, something that was built, and they are obviously builders. I love the Goblins so much. Quick thinks, all thoughts. Yeah, if I ever make an alt account, it would definitely be slow thinks, no thoughts. I definitely want to read this. The Vanu Vanu. Interesting people. There's this Bismarck. The wow, wait a minute, what? They're called the Nath, but what? I always thought they were the Vath. Is this a misprint? Or are they the Nath? But they're called Vath. That's weird. Ravana is their icon. Mamuja. Gigants. The Gigantes. I didn't know King Thornton is technically a primal. I didn't know that Sephiroth is a primal. For creatures. The Bestiary. Oppo Oppo. Gabu. There are a lot of Gabu mounts. Unicorn. Whorehound Tiger. Coral. Curl. Dalmo. Bandersnatch. Hippogriff. Buffalo. Catabalpass. Old Goat. Manticore. Unicorn. Megalotragus. Bear. Megalotragus. Bear. Jackal. Mylodon Yak. Behemoth. That's a classic Final Fantasy enemy. Oh, there they are, the Funguar. Those are kind of like the kind of things you'll see in Gridania. Funguar and tree ants. You'll see tree ants in other places, but bulbs, Flasia, Ochu, Cactuar, Morble. I remember, I think they used to be called Marlboros. I wonder if that changed because of the cigarettes. The worms. Antlings. Chocobo is technically considered a cloudkin. I didn't know that. These basilisks. We were talking about Ul'dah earlier. Basilisks is what you see sometimes in the deserts of Ul'dah. Tonberries. I love tonberries. Avis are like lesser dragons. Siren. I actually just found out, like, what was it? When doing the Zodiac weapon, the Realm Reborn Relic weapon, there's a couple dungeons you have to go into that I had never gone into before. And the Siren is the final boss of one of them. Persona. That's what they call that. It looks like something out of Persona. That's funny. Wait a minute. A Gala cat? I don't know that I've ever seen a Gala cat. That's crazy. Cerberus. What is he in the... I think he's in the World of Darkness. Alliance Raid. Oh wow. I have to redeem that. I am not going to publish this until I do. That's awesome. Alright, well, thank you everybody for sitting with me through this this read-through of Encyclopedia Eorzea. Obviously we didn't read anything really. We just kind of went over highlights and memories of the game relating to the contents of the pages. But I will actually probably be going through and reading this. Oh wow, this was published in 2016. Looks like. But yeah, thank you everybody for hanging out and reading through Encyclopedia Eorzea with me, or at least just taking a quick peek through its pages. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I don't know if you heard that, but my cat just sneezed downstairs. He was just eating his food though, so that's a good sign. But I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and a good holiday season.